so this section is all about what to do with this deck if it's shuffled. Now that could be like I do, which is you've done some routines with the stack and now you move into a shuffle. So halfway, you know, maybe you've done 2 or 3 routines with the cards stacked and then you actually shuffle them and you go into routines with a stack, with a shuffled pack. Or it could be that somebody's picked up the cards and shuffled them. Now, before we go into any routines, I just want to point out to you that even if the cards are shuffled, you can still get a ton of information. So please remember, even if the cards are shuffled, you can still tell whether the card is a positive or a negative card. You can still tell what the emotion on that card is. Excuse me, you can still tell what the image on that card is. And you can still tell what the initials are of the person that's actually made the quote. So there's a whole bunch of information that you can get on a card, even if it's been shuffled. So if you're working with the stack and somebody picks up the cards and shuffles them, or you drop them and you're worried, don't be worried. There is so much you can do with this, both from a mind reading point of view, from using the marks, but also with the routines in this section as well. So please don't be worried, please don't be concerned. With that being said, we're going to go into a whole bunch of routines using the Evoke deck, and we're going to start off with one of my favorites. So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about is how you can actually use this deck of cards like a tossed out deck. Now, if you don't know what the tossed out deck is, it's one of the classics of Magic. The Hoy tossed out deck has been around forever, and it's a perennial favorite from stage magicians all over the world. The whole idea with the tossed out deck is that you have a deck of cards wrapped up with an elastic band, and you have them peek at cards. You throw the cards out to somebody, have them peek at a card, somebody else have them peek at a card, somebody else have them peek at a card, and then you have them stand up and you can tell them the cards they're thinking of. And how it works is very simply, the cards are, there's only 4 cards in the deck repeated a whole bunch of times, so they only can possibly get one of 4 cards, and there's kind of a dual reality thing when you're calling out the names of the playing cards. Now you can do a very similar thing here with the images. So because I want you to remember there's only 5 images in these cards, and the 5 images are repeated over and over again throughout the 26 cards. So if you're performing on stage or you're performing in a parlor show, you can do a version of the tossed out deck. But what's great about this is, well, the problem with the tossed out deck is you've got obvious duplicates all the way through. So you either have to switch the deck, use a gaff deck, or very briefly look at show the cards, but not for too long, because they'll see that there's only 4 cards repeated. But with these cards here, because each image looks very different, you can show the cards. You can even have the cards examined as much as you want to, and it doesn't look like there's any repeats, even though there are. So if you're going to perform this like a tossed out deck, I'm going to give you a couple of different ways of doing this. The first way would be to bring these cards out. You're standing on stage, you bring these cards out and you point out that they're mini motivational posters, and each one has a different image on it, right? And then you can give the cards to somebody, have them shuffle the cards. So you go out in the audience, you give somebody the cards, you say shuffle them up, and then cut and look at a card. So they cut and they look at a card, and you say remember the image. Forget about anything else on there, just remember the image of what the image is. So they look at it, they remember it. Now you get the cards, you go over to a second person, you say you shuffle the cards, you cut. You go to a third person, you say you shuffle the cards, you cut. You go over to a 4th person and a 5th person, and each time you have them shuffle the cards, which is very different to the tossed out deck. You couldn't do this like this with the tossed out deck, but with the Evoke deck you can. So 5 people have shuffled the cards and 5 people have cut and looked at an image. So now you have them stand up. Now there's a couple of different ways of presenting this, and the first way is the classic tossed out deck. So you've got 5 people standing up in the audience, and you say, now I'm not going to say anything, I don't want you to react in any way, don't react at all. I'm going to see if I can tell you what the images are that you're thinking of. I want to concentrate on the images, really think of them, imagine that picture's there in front of you and try and send that to me. Okay, don't react. I'm getting a tree, flower, like mountains or some mountains, like a waterfall thing, like a big expanse of water like the ocean. Now, yeah, definitely a tree, definitely a flower, some mountains, a waterfall, and the ocean. When I say go, if I said your image, please sit down, and you say go, everybody sits down, huge round of applause. From the audience's point of view, you've got all 5 of those images correct. But there's a dual reality thing going on, because to be honest, all 5 of those people could have thought of a tree. All 5 of those people could have thought of a flower. Or maybe they thought of all different images, but 2 people thought of a flower and no one thought of mountains. You don't know. But you're just making the statement, flower, tree, mountains, waterfall, ocean. If I've said your image, sit down. You're definitely going to have said your image because you've described every single image in the Evoke deck. So everybody will sit down. The audience will think that you've got it completely correct, and you'll get a big round of applause. Now, you can actually apply the Wayne Dobson methodology to this as well. So Wayne Dobson, who's an incredible magician and a true legend in the British magical community, had the idea of presenting tossed out decks slightly differently. And it was Wayne's way of almost guaranteeing a spontaneous round of applause at the end of a tossed out deck routine. And it was a way of actually getting 5 separate pieces of applause as opposed to 1, because the way that I just described it there, everyone sits down, you get a round of applause, you move on. So what Wayne suggests you do, and you can apply Wayne's methodology to this, is you do you get to the point where you're about to tell them the images, and you say, look, I'm going to make a statement, don't say anything. Flower, tree, mountains, waterfall, and the ocean. Now, don't say if I'm right or not. I'm going to ask you one at a time. You over there. If I described your image that you looked at when you shuffled the cards and you looked at any image, if I described your image, please sit down and the audience will give you a big round of applause. Boom, the guy sits down. He's got to sit down, right? Great, oh yeah. And you say to the second person, now that was a nice polite round of applause because I got 1. I could have got lucky, but 2 isn't lucky. So if I get yours, if I've got yours correct, when you sit down, the applause will be even louder. If I describe your image, please sit down, and they do, and the applause gets even louder, and you say to the third person, now that was great, 2, but 3, now that's bordering on psychic. You heard the applause that I got when I got 2 correct. 3, it's almost like the roof is going to blow off this building. If I got your image, please sit down. And the third person sits down, the applause builds even more, and you say to the fourth person, right, okay, I've got 2 left, I'm on a roll here. It gets harder with each person because obviously, you know, it's more difficult, but I think I managed to get yours as well. If I describe your image, you're going to sit down, and if you do, everyone's going to go crazy. Did I get your image? They sit down, boom. And you go, right, one last one. If I've got all 5 correctly, every single person is going to stand up and give a standing ovation, not to me, but for all of you. It doesn't happen every time. I feel confident about this. If I got your image, please sit down. The last person sits down, everyone goes crazy. So it's a great way of doing that. Now, speaking to Pete Turner, when I spoke to Pete Turner about this deck, Pete had a very interesting idea with the tossed out deck. And his idea, genius really, was to have, when you call out the images, so you do exactly the way that I did it initially, you get 5 people to pick images, but when you call out the images, you only call 4 of the images, you leave 1, and instead you say something else. So for example, I'd say, right, okay, concentrate on the images, I think I've got them. Don't say anything, but I'm seeing a tree. Yeah, definitely a tree. Some mountains or a mountain. Like a waterfall, water falling down, and like a big body of water like the ocean. And I'm also seeing like a fish type thing, a fish. I'm seeing a big fish or a shark or something like that. It's not a small fish, it's like a big fish, like a shark. Yeah, okay, so a tree or some trees, a waterfall or some waterfalls, some mountains, a mountain, the ocean, and then like a real close-up of a shark. I think it's a shark. If I got your image, please sit down. Now what's going to happen, because what I did there is I didn't say flower, and instead of saying flower, I actually put a shark in. That doesn't have to be a shark, it can be anything you want to. But what's going to happen when I do that? One of three things is going to happen. The first thing that's going to happen is all 5 people sit down, because nobody thought of a flower, and instead they all thought of the other 4 images. And all the people sit down, in which case, great, you get a big round of applause. Job done. It's great. It's amazing, because they took the cards, they shuffled, they cut, you didn't touch the pack at all, because you don't have to. That's the beautiful thing to this. The first person shuffles, cuts, looks at it, they hand it to the second person, they hand it to the third person, the final person puts it away in your case or whatever. So if everyone sits down, that's an amazing moment. The second thing that will happen is 4 people will sit down and 1 person will stay standing, because that one person thought of a flower. Now, if that happens, you've got a miracle on your hands, because you know that person has to have thought of a flower, because they're thinking of the one image that you didn't say. So now you can invite that person on stage, and you can either kind of like say concentrate, and you can make a big deal of saying flower directly to that person, or you can do a drawing duplication. You can hand them a clipboard, you can keep a clipboard yourself, and you can draw at the same time, back to back, the image that person's thinking of, and then you can show it to the audience, and you've both drawn a flower, which is amazing. It gives you an opportunity to really build up that final reveal. And that happens more often than not. Most of the time, that's the outcome. There'll be 1 person left standing that you haven't hit, and now you can bring them up on stage. Now, the other thing that will happen, and this is very, very rare, but it's worth talking about, occasionally you might have like 2 people stay standing, because they both thought of a flower. That only happens 20% of the time, but you could have a situation where a couple of people... Now, if that happens, that's amazing, because if that happens, you bring them both on stage. And this is going to be a super coincidental thing, because you say, okay, I didn't get your image. I want you to both concentrate on your image, concentrate on your image. I'm going to do a drawing of what I think you thought of. I'm going to do a drawing of what I think you thought of. I'm going to put that there, and you draw a flower. I'm going to draw a drawing of what you thought of, and you draw another flower, but you don't shout them. So you've drawn 2 flowers. And you say, okay, right, in a big loud voice, what was it that you thought of? And they'll say flower. And you go, okay, and what did you think of? And they say flower. And you go, well, that's a bit of a coincidence. You must have both thought of the same card. You must have shuffled and cut to the same card. Maybe that's why I shuffled. Well, the first thing that I drew was your image, and I drew a flower. Now, I couldn't have possibly known that you both would have thought of flowers, but the second image that I drew was a flower as well. Give them both a big round of applause, and you can have an even bigger moment by having more than 1 person think of that final image. So the point is, this can be used in a really interesting way to do the Hoy tossed out deck. So if you're a parlor performer, cabaret performer, if you perform on stage and you want to do something that's really quite different, it's like a drawing duplication but a tossed out deck, this deck of cards will allow you to do that. Thanks to Wayne Dobson, thanks for Pete Turner for, obviously Wayne's idea of having, each person sit down one at a time, and also Pete Turner for having that amazing idea at the end. But the whole idea of using this with the tossed out deck is brilliant, and I think that anybody who uses that will absolutely kill with it. Now, one thing that I think that people should try and do with the Evoke deck is think about card tricks. Think about tricks that you do with a deck of cards that you can apply to this Evoke deck, because there are so many card tricks that you can apply to this, and it completely changes the premise, it completely changes the structure, it completely changes everything. Now, me and Pete Nardi talked about this. If you look at the section with me and Pete Nardi, we talked about how you can take card tricks and you can apply this to this deck and make it look very different. And Pete's idea of a 10-card poker deal is the perfect example of that. Now, I want to give you another example, which is a handling of the Biddle Trick, which is a really great trick. It's a classic of magic. But you can apply the Biddle Trick to the Evoke deck, and you can completely change it from just a card trick into a really emotive piece of magic. So what I do when I do this is I have the cards shuffled, so they mix up the cards. And this isn't an opening routine for me, it's not a closing routine, but it's a real solid piece in the middle. So you have them mix up the cards, and you have them go through, and you say, I want you to take out four cards with negative emotions on them. Can you do that for me, please? 4 cards with negative emotions on them. They can either be random negative emotions, or there can be ones that you relate to. Maybe emotions that you've felt in the past that you never want to feel again, or maybe emotions that you're currently feeling that you're trying to push away. So they go through, and let's say they take out vanity, and they take out hateful, and they take out depressed, and they take out quitting. So they take out those 4. And all you're going to do is you're going to say, fantastic, these are the 4 emotions that you've chosen. Now what you're going to do is you're holding the deck in your left hand in dealing grip, and I'm just going to back spread these 4. And this is a little move that I first learned from Darwin Ortiz, from a routine that he published in Card Shark called Kartenkunst. And you've back spread these 4 cards like this, and you're showing them a little spread. And all you're going to do is you're just going to square them up like that and put them on the table, but you've actually ditched one of them. Now what makes that different, because normally when you see something like that, what you do is you kind of drop them face down, you in-jog one, you push down on the in-jog. This is a really nice way of handling it. All you're going to do, if you try this yourself, when you back spread 4 cards, if you hold them like this, so that the bottom card of the 4 is held between the tip of the thumb and the middle finger, just by putting your forefinger on top and squeezing, it shoots that card off relatively easily. As you can see, it just goes bonk and shoots that card off. So you can do that as you're squaring up, and it just looks like a very fair way of apparently putting those 4 negative emotions down on the table, but in reality you've ditched one of them on top of the deck. Okay? So now you're going to say, let's take a positive emotion, an emotion that you feel that you can relate to that's a positive emotion. Now as you say that, what you're going to do is you're going to turn the cards face up, and you're going to reverse this card on top by doing a Browie reversal. Now if you don't know the Browie reversal, it's very simple. You're going to get a break underneath the top card, which is that one that you've ditched. And you're going to hold the cards like this. So you're holding a thumb break between that top card and the rest of the pack. You undercut half of the cards, turn them face up and put them back on top of the pack face up. And then as you square those up, you undercut everything below the break, turn them face up and put them back on top of the pack face up. So it just looks like you've turned the cards face up with a couple of cuts, but in reality, that card right there, the quitting card, is face down at the bottom. So in full speed, it looks like this. I want you to think of a positive emotion now, and it doesn't matter whether I see it, I'm allowed to see it, maybe a positive emotion that you can relate to. Let's have a look through them. And as I'm doing this, I spread through, and I'm calling out all the positive emotions, and I say sincerity, joyful, love, confident. Do any of these feel like you could relate to them? Kindness, merry, trust, and they go trust, and you go brilliant. And you take out the positive emotion that they want. Now you don't want to spread right to the very end, because you don't want to see that that card is reversed. So you want them to try and pick a positive emotion out kind of in the top 3/4 of the pack, which is relatively easy to do. And then when they've taken out this card, trust in this case, you're going to turn it face down and put it at the bottom of the pack and turn everything over. So they can see trust, and you say, so this is the positive emotion, yes? And they say yes. And you go, great, we'll put that down on the table with the negative emotions that you picked. And all you're going to do is a double turnover. So you're going to grab the edge of the 2 cards, slide them over and flip them over, and deal that top card on the table. So you're actually dealing the original negative emotion onto the table. From the audience's point of view, that's their positive emotion, that's their negative emotions. In reality, all we have are negative. So all we're going to do now is we're going to do another Browie reversal, reversing this card in the middle of the pack. And how you're going to do that is very simply, it's the same as before but slightly different. So you get your thumb break underneath the top card, you undercut the bottom half, put them on top, and then you undercut the rest of the cards, but rather than putting them here, you put them underneath. And that's going to reverse their trust card in the middle. Now let me just do that for you in full speed. So in full speed, You show the 4 negative emotions. You say, I've got these 4 negative emotions that you picked. You decided on these 4 negative emotions. We'll put them over there for a second. I would like you to pick a positive emotion. That could be something, maybe an emotion that you like feeling, or an emotion that you feel that you personify. So it could be fearless, it could be grateful. Stop me when you see one you like. Patience, wonder, sincerity, joyful, love, confidence, kindness, merry, trust, and they say trust. And you go, brilliant, trust. And is that an emotion that you feel that you can relate to? It is, great, we'll put that down there with the negative emotions. Now think about this for a minute. You could have had any one of these. It was your choice. You've made all the decisions. So now you've got to this point. So that is already reversed in there. They think this is the positive emotion. So all I do now is I take these negative emotions and I just flash them, and I just do an Elmsley count, a 3 for 4 Elmsley count. Now just briefly to go through that so that people know what I'm doing here. I'm doing an Elmsley count which allows me to count 3 as 4. So I'm holding the cards in my left hand. Notice my forefinger is there in the upper right corner. My thumb is on top. Now my thumb pushes over the top card like that, which allows my right hand to grab these 2 cards. And my right hand's not really going to move. It's just going to hold these cards between the thumb on top and the fingers underneath. My left hand comes forward with 1. And as it's coming forward, my right thumb pushes the second card over. And all I'm going to do is, as I take that second card, this card here gets stolen underneath the packet. So I'm taking that back as this hand goes forward, and then 3 and then 4 go on normally. From underneath, you can see very clearly 1, 2, 3, 4. The most important thing about doing any false count is the tempo. What you don't want to do is go 1, 2, 3, 4. You want the tempo to be there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And you don't want to count them through like that. You just say, so we've got all of these negative emotions here, and we've got this positive emotion. And I apparently put the positive emotion into the middle, and I have them hold their hands out, and I put them in between their hands. And then I say, right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to focus on that positive emotion, because a lot of the time in life, we have negative thoughts and we have positive thoughts all day long. We think positively, we think negatively, and if we focus on that positive thought, we can separate all of those positive thoughts away from the negative thoughts, which allow us to take those negative thoughts and lock them away, take those negative emotions that we don't want and lock them away. So I want you to focus on that positive emotion. Just focus on how it makes you feel. And they do that, and I say, great, open up your hands and let's see if it's worked. And now I deal down, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, which is a big surprise, because they should have had, so 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, it's a big surprise. They should have had 5. Now they've got 4. And I say, look, we've still got depressed, we've still got quitting, we've still got hateful, we've still got vanity. You've managed to focus on that positive thought, and you've managed to push it away. And let's have a look over here. And now when you spread through the cards, you go, yes, look, you've focused on it so much, it's the only card over here that's turned over. And that is amazing. Well done. Give yourself a round of applause, or whatever you want to say. Now, there is another way to actually present that, which is to do it in reverse. And what I mean by doing it in reverse is you have them take out 4 positive emotions. So have them take out 4 emotions that are positive, that they feel they can relate to. So let's say they take out these 4. Now the trick is exactly the same. So you say, these are 4 positive emotions that you like to feel. These are 4 positive emotions that you feel describe you. Is that right? And they say yes. And you go, brilliant. Now I want you to pick a negative emotion, an emotion that you never want to feel ever. So they then go through and they look for a negative emotion, and they pick a negative emotion. Let's say they pick xenophobia, because they don't want to be racist, okay? So they take out this emotion, and you say, brilliant, we're going to use that negative emotion, and we're going to use those positive emotions. And now I just do my brow reversal to leave that over here. Now, you're going to do exactly the same thing. So you're going to give these a little Elmsley count to show there's 4 cards. You're going to take this apparent negative emotion and put it within the positive emotions. By the way, if you want to, you can at this point give another false count and show there's 5 cards. So you can count off 1 and then steal that back as you count off the second one, then 3, 4, 5. So you can just say, so we've got that 1 positive emotion in all of these negative emotions, and you can count and show 5 cards there if you want to. The point is, presentationally with this handling, you're going to say, now let me talk to you about the power of positivity. In your hand, you're holding all of those positive emotions that you love, and that 1 negative emotion that you don't want to feel ever. Well, if you focus on your positive emotions, you can push that negative emotion away so that you never feel it. But you've got to think about all those positive emotions, all of those things that you felt, all of those emotions that you felt were important to you. I want you to focus on those. And they do, and you say, well, let's see how we've done. And now you turn over and you show that there's only 4 cards and that all that's left are those positive emotions. And now all you have to do at this point is come over here and you say, well, that negative emotion, you pushed it right back where it started from. Here it is, xenophobia. And anytime you think negatively, all you have to do is focus on the positivity in your life, and you can push that negative emotion far away where you'll never feel it. And I'm a motivational speaker as well as a magician, and I talk to people about mindset. I talk to people about the power of positive thought and positive affirmations and believing in yourself. I talk about this sort of stuff all the time, and it is an amazing hook to be able to use with people. It really is, and it's a really important message that people love to hear. And using something as simple as the Biddle Trick and the Evoke cards allows you to put something like that across in a really entertaining and engaging way that people will remember far more than just a simple card trick. So that's the Biddle Trick, and that's a couple of different ways of presenting it. Now we're going to move on with something else. So continuing the idea of using a classic card trick with the Evoke deck to actually change around everything that it actually kind of stands for, let's look at probably the most well-known card trick of all time, Ambitious Card, and how you can perform Ambitious Card with this deck and put across a really emotive message. So I'm going to perform this to you, and I'll go through how it works. It's very, very simple, and I'll get my my cameraman Nemid to help me. So these cards would have been mixed and these cards would have been shuffled by the spectator. And you say, hey, I'm going to give you a demonstration in the power of positive thinking. Because as well as a magician, I'm actually a motivational speaker, and I've actually been booked for years now to speak to mainly business people about how to actually become more successful in business. And one way that that is possible is through positive thinking and shifting your mindset to a more positive kind of mindset. And I'll give you an example of this. So I've got 26 cards here in this pack, and all of these are positive emotions and all of these are negative emotions. The biggest issue that any business owner has is not having the right mindset, and mindset in business is everything. So I'm going to give you an example. We're going to use all of the negative emotions, and my friend Nemid behind the camera here, we're going to have him pick a positive emotion, but it's got to be a positive emotion that he can relate to, that he likes to feel. So Nemid, we've got, just stop me when you get one you like. So we've got fearless, trust, grateful, confidence, merry, joyful, wonder, zest, love, sincerity, kindness, patience, and ecstatic.
Let's go with wonder.
Wonder. I've always thought that about you. Perfect. Wonder. So I'll put the rest of them over here for a minute. So we've got all of these negative emotions, and then we've got this one positive emotion. Because here's the thing, a lot of the time, the reason people aren't as successful as they want to be is they dwell on the negative. They think negatively, they don't think positively. And if you just think of that one positive emotion that you can relate to, you can shift everything, you can shift your mindset. But the problem is, a lot of the time, it's difficult to think of that positive emotion because you kind of find it easier to be negative. You kind of look at your business as not how well it's done. You don't think of all the things that you've done well, but you just look at all the things that you're not doing well, or all the things that you could be doing better. And to illustrate that, I'm going to take all these negative emotions and put your wonder card and bury it right down there in between all of those negative emotions. Now, when you wake up in the morning, you're thinking negatively a lot of the time. You have to switch your mindset to thinking positively. If you focus on that wonder, that love of wonder, and you really focus on it, you can bring that positive emotion right to the forefront, and you can make that the emotion that you're thinking throughout the day, and not all of those negative emotions, just the positive emotions, right? Now, but the problem is you have to do this every single day, because the problem is anyone can have a good day, but when you wake up in the morning, maybe something's happened. Maybe you've had an issue in the business. Maybe things haven't gone the way you wanted it to go, which means that it's very difficult to think of that positive emotion. But let me tell you right now, if you focus on that positive emotion and you think positively, then all you'll have all day is positivity. The power of positivity, the power of mindset really is so important. Sometimes you'll wake up in the morning, or you'll have a really bad day the day before, and just you have no positivity in you. It's just buried deep down there. All you have to do is think positively. All you have to do is focus on how that positive emotion makes you feel. You can bring it to the forefront, and you will always end up feeling positive. But let me explain the problem. What happens, right, if that positive emotion is buried so far and so far down that you just can't access it? What happens if all you're focusing on when you wake up in the morning are those negative emotions? You just got nothing but negativity in front of you, and you can't focus on anything else. Well, I'll tell you right now, your business will suffer. If all you think of is negativity, your business is going to suffer. You have to remind yourself to be proud of what you've done. You've got to remind yourself to be proud of what you've achieved. You've got to remind yourself that sense of wonder is so important, because if you do that, not only will that positive emotion come to the front, but if you do it every single day and you make it a daily thing, then what will happen is those negative emotions will disappear. You'll have no negative emotions in your life. You'll only have positive emotions. Positivity will surround you. You'll be more successful in business. You won't be thinking negatively, and that is how you become successful. So that's a really fun presentation that I actually do use when I get booked as a motivational speaker for businesses. And it's a great way of doing the ambitious card. Now, all you have to do to this, it's a very simple routine. You're going to have you openly separate your negative and your positive emotions. And you can go back and look at the presentation, but you separate the negative and the positive emotions. And you put the negative emotions in front of you, and you ask them to think of a positive emotion. So let's take wonder again. And then the rest of the positive emotions just get pushed to one side, to the side of the table. I put it to my left. And it's nice to be able to show those negative emotions again if you want to. Now, all you're going to do is a very simple, ambitious card. No difficult moves here. You're going to start off by putting yourself together a tilt break. For the tilt move, or the depth illusion, depending on whether you're a Marlowe fan or a Vernon fan. What you're going to do is you're going to hold a break like that. Hopefully you can see that there. What I have the break at the back here, but it's elevated up on both sides. Now, from the front you can't see anything. From the left side you can't see anything because of your thumb. Your right side you can't see anything because of the fingers. But you've got that break elevated up at the back there, right? Which means that when I take the positive emotion, wonder in this case, and I put it down apparently into the middle or near the bottom, it's actually going third from top because of the tilt break, right? So I'm actually putting it third from top, and then when I square up, I get a break underneath 3 cards. So I just square up and I get a break underneath 3 cards. Now what that allows me to do is to do a triple lift. So I can do a triple lift, which is turning over 3 cards, by the way. I've got the break, so all I do is I pull down with my little finger, grab the 3 cards, and flip them over like that, right? And that shows that that positive emotion has come to the top. And I can flash the negative emotions on the bottom if I want to. Now I'm going to do another triple turnover, so I'm going to turn these 3 cards over again, pull down, turn those 3 cards over, and I'm going to take that top card and put it down somewhere into the middle. So I push that card somewhere down in the middle. They think that's the wonder card, but really it's a random negative emotion. So that goes somewhere down into the middle. You wait a beat, and then once you've waited a beat, you're going to do a double turnover and show that card jump to the top again, which is a really strong moment, especially if you're using the script that I just taught you in the performance. So now you're going to turn the double down, and you're going to deal it down into the middle of the packet again. So you push it down into the middle of the packet, you wait a beat. Oh no, sorry, the third time, I'm very sorry, in my presentation, I've got the double lift ready here. The third time I do the double turnover, but I drop the card down onto the table. And I drop the rest on top because I talk about positivity being buried so far down deep, it feels almost impossible to actually focus on. And I just leave the cards on the table and I just turn that top card over to show that wonders come back up to the top. Now, I pick up this packet and I briefly show that these are positive emotions and I hold them in my left hand. And I'm going to make it look like I pull that wonder card onto this packet. But in reality, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch all of these cards here for all of these cards here. So I'm actually switching in all the positive cards. Now to do this, I'm holding these here. I'm holding these here. Let me show you from this angle. I'm holding this packet with wonder on top between the thumb at the back and the middle finger at the front. And this is kind of like a Hammond count switch. All you're going to do is you're going to come in and you're going to switch packets. So this packet with wonder on goes into the thumb crotch. The thumb, the tip of the thumb, touches the back of this packet, and the ring finger grabs the front of the packet, and I just switch the whole packet. Now, it looks like that. Now, when you do this, you don't want people viewing it from the front because they'll see what's going on. So you want people viewing it from the top. So if you're doing it with the audience in front of you like this, you tilt the cards down slightly so the back of the hands are the back of the cards are towards the audience. But when you do it right, you know, you've just shown all of these positive emotions here. You do this. It really looks like I just take that wonder card and I pull it onto the positivity packet. Now these cards, which they think are all the negative emotions, but they're all the positive emotions, they go right here in front of me. Directly in front of me like that. And that's important because in a minute we're going to do something called the Vernon transfer by Di Vernon. Now you take this wonder card and you turn it face down and you're going to shuffle it into these cards. And all I'm going to do is shuffle it to the bottom. So I just hold the cards in overhand shuffle position. I pull off one card, which is the wonder card, and then I shuffle the rest of the cards on top. So the wonder card's at the bottom. And then I give them another shuffle, but I do a milk shuffle. Now milk shuffle is I just squeeze my thumb and my fingers together so that when I shuffle again, that wonder card stays at the bottom. So from the front, it looks like this. I just take that wonder card and I shuffle it into the pack and I give the cards another shuffle. So it looks like it's been mixed into the pack, but really it's right there at the bottom. Now, as I talk about the negative emotions, I'm going to spread these out like this, but as I do, I'm going to transfer that bottom card onto this packet. Now let me explain how this is going to work. You're going to hold this packet between the thumb and the forefinger on the left hand side here. These fingers cover from the front. And your left hand is going to pull down on that bottom card, which is the wonder card, and it's going to use its little finger to pivot that card over slightly like this. So it's held between the thumb and the tip of the little finger. Can you see that there now? Yeah, that's cool. I've got a thumbs up. Now you don't see, this is how it looks when you get it into position. It doesn't look like you've done anything. I've done it now. It doesn't look like anything, but it's in position, right? So again, you're here, you just pull down and you just bring it over like that. So you've shuffled it into the pack and it doesn't look like anything's happened, but I've got that in position. Now all I'm going to do is put this packet over here, and this card is going to stay in my hand because I'm pinching the edge of the side of this packet and that stays in my hand. So the question is, why don't they see that card? And the reason is, once I've done the shuffle, right, my hands are directly over this packet. So once I've done the shuffle and I get this card into position, my hands directly over this packet on the table. So two things are going to happen at the same time. My left hand is going to move this packet to here, and this card that's left here is going to drop straight down on this packet as I spread. Now let me show you what it looks like in full speed. So I'm here and I say, let's just bury that positive emotion in between the other positive emotions, because sometimes you wake up in the morning and all you can focus on is negativity and not positivity. And I'm done. That positive emotion is now over here, right? So all I have to do now is pick this packet up, wait a beat, and then turn over and show that that card is right there on the top of this packet, which is an incredible moment because they saw that it was over there a second ago. It looks really good. But then you've got this kicker that they don't see coming. You wait a beat and then you turn over every other card and you show that all these are positive emotions as well, and that there's no negative emotions, and that you've locked the negative emotions up over here, out the way, where you're never going to think of them, and that's how you become more successful in business. And it's really a strong moment. Now, I will tell you one other thing as well. The really great thing about this effect is it automatically sets you up for the Out of This World by Pete Turner. I was having a brain fart there. Sorry, guys. It sets you up automatically for the Out of This World by Pete Turner. You can go and look at that in Pete's section. But all I have to do is put these together like this. Give the cards either a full shuffle or give them a Charlier shuffle, and then just look for the where the plus is. Cut at that point, and now I've got all the negative and the positive emotions separated, which means that I can go directly into the Out of This World. So it's also an amazing trick. If you want to do Pete's Out of This World, it's an amazing trick to go into. It's a great trick to do, and then you're automatically set to go into the Out of This World. So there you go. That's called Positively Ambitious, the power of positive thinking. And we're going to move on now with another effect. Okay, so I want to briefly touch on the stupid principle now, which is what we talked about when I originally told you what the cards were. I talked about how you can actually use this in the context of a baby gag in the section with Pete Nardi. So if you want to actually go see that, you can do. I explained how to do the fishing and how to actually get the name, and that's all well and good. However, there is a way that I actually use the stupid principle in order to do a one ahead, and it's one of the strongest things that you can do with this deck. So I'm going to go through exactly what this looks like. So what you need for this is you need a couple of business cards, and you also need a pen, and you also need the inspiration deck or the Evoke deck, right? Now what you're going to do here is you're going to start off by pointing out to people that each one of these cards has a quote, and the quote is actually being written by a different person. And you have them, you say, look, I want you to go through these and have a look at the people that have made the quotes, and I want you to think of one of them. And it's totally up to you which one, but I'd like it to be somebody who you can visualize. So somebody who you can think of what they look like in your head. Can you do that for me? And they say yes. And you then give them the cards and you have them look through. And as they're looking through, to kill the dead time, you say, now there's lots of people that have left quotes in here. There's philosophers, there's entrepreneurs, there's motivational speakers, there's positivity experts, there's celebrities, there's singers, there's dancers, there's so many different people. And eventually the person is going to say, yeah, I've got somebody. And you go, great, I want you to take the card out with their name on it and just put the rest down. We don't need them. Now, there's only 5 names they're going to be able to visualize, because 21 of the names are made up and don't exist. So the only 5 names they can think of are Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Tom Cruise, George Clooney, and Johnny Depp. Now, if you go back and look at Pete's section, I talk through how to actually fish to get that information, because there is a way to actually get that information. It doesn't look like you're fishing. I'll do this to the cameraman behind the camera. I'll do this to Nemid. Nemid, think of Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Matt Damon, George Clooney, or Johnny Depp. It would look like this. So Nemid, think of the name. I want you to think of the first name. Imagine the first name and the length of the first name. It's quite a short first name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 letters?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Surname's a little bit longer though, right? And it doesn't look like I've made a statement. That's all I've done. I've made a statement, but I now know that Nemeth is thinking of Tom Cruise. So that's how that works. So in this case, let's just take the Tom Cruise card out, because what's going to happen now is I make those statements. So they're thinking of a name, and I make those statements as I'm performing to them, and I say, you know what, I think I've got who you're thinking of. I think I've got them. And I don't tell them who it is. And I say, I think I've got them, but we're going to see if we're going to go one step further. And then what you do, I can't find Tom, there he is, Tom Cruise. I then say, look, can you give that card with that person's name on it to somebody else? So what would happen then is Nemeth, in this example, would give that card to somebody else. And I say to that other person, can you look at the name on that card? Do you know who that person is? Are you aware of their body of work? And they will go yes, because the 5 names I've picked, everybody knows those 5 names. They'll go yes. And you go, brilliant. So can you do me a favor? Don't say anything, but can you think of somebody who that person is associated with? Now, it could be they're in a relationship with them. It could be that if they're a motivational speaker, they've appeared on the same stage of them. If they're a singer, they've formed a duet, or they're in a band together. If it's an actor, it might be a film that they've appeared in with somebody else. And I know they're going to have thought of an actor. I know that, because the only 5 names they could have thought of is an actor. But I give them various. I don't want to just say, if it's an actor, think of, because I want to make out that they could have thought of anybody. So. And I found it's important, by the way, to say that. And the reason it's important is because if you just make the generalized statement to think of somebody that they've got a relationship with, they might struggle to think of anybody. But if you say, you know, if they're an actor, think of somebody they've been in a film with, or somebody they're married to, or they've got a relationship with. It's relatively easy. Tom Cruise is very, very easy. Let's say they thought of Nicole Kidman, because he was married to Nicole Kidman for a while, and they were in a lot of films together. So now this second person is thinking of Nicole Kidman. The first person is thinking of Tom Cruise. I then say, great, put the card away inside all the other cards and hold on to them. I don't even take them back. Now we're going to use a one-ahead system to be able to get the information that we need off her, because we already have the information that we need off him, because we know, because of what we've said earlier on and the statements we've made to him, we know he's thinking of Tom Cruise. So I pick up the first business card and I say, I'm going to start with you. And I start with the second person. I say, now what I want you to do is think of the person that you're thinking of and don't say anything. And they go, okay. And all I'm going to do is write on my business card, Tom Cruise. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to write Tom Cruise. So I write Tom Cruise and I go, right, I think I'm committed. I think I've got it. I'm going to put it down here. Who's the person you're thinking of? And they say, Nicole Kidman. You go, okay, interesting. And again, I mentioned this earlier on in the project, but go back and look at the conversation with me and Pete Turner, because Pete speaks in detail about how you should act in a one-ahead situation when you're doing something like this. But let's just say, for argument's sake, it's Nicole Kidman. I go, okay, interesting, fantastic. I then say, right, Nicole Kidman doesn't really tell me much, because she's a very well-known actress. She's been in hundreds of films. Doesn't really tell me much at all. It could be anybody you're thinking of, but I want you to think of that person. And all I'm going to do on this card is I'm just going to write Nicole Kidman. So I just write the person who they've just told me they thought of. So I'm just writing Nicole Kidman. There you go. And I put that down there. Now, at this point, I recap. And I say, think about this. You had a whole bunch of different people that you could think of. You've not told me. You've not said anything out loud. You've not actually even wrote it down. It's existing in your head only. But you know, and you use that information to think of somebody completely different. And now I pick up these cards. So the top card goes into my right hand and the bottom card goes into my left hand. And I go, interesting. And I just start with you and I say, you've already mentioned it. Who was the person you were thinking of? And they go, Nicole Kidman. And you go, Nicole Kidman. And that's interesting, because I wrote down Nicole Kidman, which is an incredible moment. And I put that down there and I say, but you thought of somebody. You haven't even said it out loud. I've already committed myself. Who were you thinking of? And they go, Tom Cruise. And you go, okay, that makes sense. Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, you know, they were married. That makes sense. I wrote down Tom Cruise, and you just show that you got that correct as well. and you just drop that down there, and that is an incredible finale to the routine. And it's a very direct piece of mind reading that allows you to get two pieces of information with nothing peaked, with no forces. I mean, kind of technically you're forcing a name, but not really. They feel like they've got a free choice. But by using the principles built into the Evoke deck, you're able to actually get all of the information that you need immediately without having to actually go through much procedure at all. It feels very direct. So if you like the stupid principle, there's a lot of different ways you can use it. You could just literally tell them the name of the person they're thinking of. You could literally tell them you do the baby gag revelation, which we've talked about before, but this is another way that you can actually do it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. We're going to have a look at one more way that you can use the stupid principle next. Okay, one more way that you can use the stupid principle, which is a really fun way to do it and kind of more of a comedic bit, is to have them think of a celebrity, have them to think of one of these cards. So look at the previous routine where I talk about how to actually use the stupid principle. So if you go look at the section with Pete Nardi, I go into this in depth. But in essence, you're going to have them go through the cards and think of somebody who left a quote, somebody they can visualize. And when they've got that, you're going to use the phishing system that I've already been through to get the name. So once again, I'm going to do this one more time with Nemi behind the camera. Nemi, can you think of one of the names that are the force names on the in the Evoke deck? Think of the first name. I want you to imagine the first name is written in front of you. Think of the length of the first name. It's quite a short first name, isn't it? Like 5 or 6 letters? 5, 6 letters? Yeah? And the surname, is that shorter? No, it's about the same amount of letters. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think I've got it. Now I know obviously you're thinking of Johnny Depp, right? Sorry, George Clooney, my bad. So because I know you're thinking of George Clooney, that's all the information I need. I say, hey, I think I've got this person. And not only that, I'm an amazing artist. I'm going to try and draw the person that you're thinking of here. So let me just see, I'm actually considered one of the best artists in the world. One of the best artists and one of the best magicians. So, you know, I'm going to do this. Can you think of them? Okay, I think I've got it. You're thinking of a man, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah, I've got this. This is so... You're going to be very impressed by this, Nemed. Okay, I'm going to have this person wear a hat. Just because I think it makes the picture look a little bit better. Okay, I think I've got the person. Who were you thinking of?
George Clooney.
George Clooney. Okay, there you go. What do you think of my picture?
Seen better.
You're not impressed? I mean, you can clearly see that's George Clooney. It's obvious to anybody who's looking.
It's got the smile.
It has got the smile. I know, I had a feeling that you'd be a bit of an art critic, which is why at the bottom I actually just wrote his name as well, George Clooney. Boom. And it's just another way of revealing that name that they've thought of. And honestly, when I do walk around and I use this deck walk around, this is one of my favorite bits to do over and over again because it gives my business card out. It's very funny, but also don't underestimate the magic here. It's very magical. They could have thought of any name. You made a couple of statements about their name. You didn't say anything else. And immediately you've got this funny gag, which is a bit like a baby gag, but you're not having to carry anything around with you. And then you show that you're actually correct with the George Clooney, and then you give them the card, and they've got your business card details. So it's really fun, really cool way of doing it. And the point is, there's so many different ways you can use the stupid principle. It's one of my favorite principles that's built into the Evoke deck, and I'm really glad that we included it in there. And there's so much you can do with it. But if you're a fun performer who wants to just have fun with your audiences, this is a great way to present it. So I wanted to share that with you.